ultimate fishing authority in the Northeast, the Fisherman magazine.
No guessing, just catching. New Explore Series fish finders keep you locked on fish with unbeatable clarity, best-in-class imaging options, and a stunning ultra-bright HD screen. There's more to explore, only with Humminbird.
You hear that terrible high-pitched screaming, the ocean turns red, and in spite of all the pounding and the hollering, they come in and they rip you to pieces. I'll never put on a dolphin-themed floaty armband again, Mr. Hooper, or wetsuit for that matter. That ain't a white shark, Mr. Hooper. It's more than one shark, too. It looks like two, maybe three. It was a scene at Island Beach State Park last week. Incredible video footage shot by Fishing with Pete, who was in the right place at the right time, as opposed to this dolphin here, who was clearly in the wrong place at the wrong time. Now, at Fishing with Pete said about this video, and he spoke to a researcher at an aquarium in Maine named John Chisholm, who's currently studying the aggressive behavior of dusky sharks. And according to Mr. Chisholm, this is per Pete, Mr. Chisholm believes these were dusky sharks on the beach at Island Beach last week. I see two, like I said, maybe three, massacring this dolphin. The Maine researcher said the dusky sharks out in New England have been doing the same thing with those seals. Unbelievable scene. Just steps from the shoreline too. Oh, not even putting my toes in. Thanks again to @Fishing with Pete for sharing that video. You're watching this video on Thursday, August 7th. I'm Jim Hutchinson with the New Jersey, Delaware Bay edition of the Fisherman magazine. I say that because right now, when I'm recording this, it is Wednesday, August 6th. Spent the morning fluking with some friends up here at Twin Lights Marina in the Highlands. It was out with Captain Erwin Heinrich of Scales and Tails. But I got to get cleaned up because I got to head back to tell you all about that ASMFC meeting. That is going on Wednesday, and you'll be finding out about it on Thursday to find out what's in store for striped bass. Now, in addition to that video footage of that shark, also got this one. Incredible moments caught on video in and around the Long Beach Island area. LBI of late has been producing some of these weird things, right? And I remember a few years ago when it was tuna, and then there was a white marlin. Well, this time, as you may have seen the post on the Fisherman's Instagram account, video from Pat_Feely, at Pat_Feely, of a mahi in the surf on the beaches of LBI. My thanks to Pat and the jetty jockeys at Jetty Jockeys for sharing this video. It's been a few years since I've heard of a surfer jetty caught mahi in New Jersey, but it does happen. And now we're looking at these easterly winds. Who knows? Maybe that pushes things in a little bit closer. Also in the headlines this past week, and I don't need to share the video, but it's that minke whale in the shallows inside Barnegat Inlet. Yeah, another weird Central Jersey moment. That whale colliding with a boat. One person was thrown overboard. Now this whale was in like shallow water in the shoals there, Tice's Shoal or Oyster Creek, Double Creek, where it all empties out. I'm not exactly sure. The person who fell over was in good shape. The whale, however, did not make it. Now, this minke whale would come to rest on the shoals where it died. Folks from Sea Tow were out there. They eventually towed it back to Barnegat Light. The Marine Mammal Stranding Center apparently did a necropsy, and we find out a little bit more. This is as per Channel 6 News. It would appear the whale was sickly before it came into the shallows behind Barnegat Inlet. Accordingly, any injuries that we may have seen from the boat, they were superficial from what we saw from the necropsy, and it does not appear to contribute to that whale's death. You do want to keep, though, at least 150 feet away from any whales. So if you see one in the bay or in the ocean, you got to try to keep your distance there to be able to keep the safety of those marine mammals. But just like Action News out of Philadelphia, the whale's bringing the world closer to you, my friends. That's the marine mammal and pelagics and shark surprises for the past week. More importantly, for those fishing the offshore grounds this week and hoping to see some National Geographic conditions with those whales and with the rays and the porpoises and the surface-busting tuna, a quick look at the offshore weather forecast from NOAA Weather this week. While midweek was rather sporty, with 4 to 7s on Wednesday, 4 to 6s on Thursday. Looks like it does begin to settle down as we head into the weekend from the Hudson to the Baltimore. No marine weather forecast. Winds to 20 knots on Friday with 3 to 6s, but lighter winds and seas 3 to 5 on Saturday and Sunday. That could change at any point. As we found out here on Wednesday, if you looked at the inshore forecast for Wednesday of this week, August 6th, light winds, well, it was honking when we left on Irwin's contender today, and I'm glad we went out because we did put a few in the box anyway. But as far as the inshore forecast heading into the weekend, out of Atlantic City, it has easterly winds 10 to 15 knots. That's the midweek forecast through Saturday night, seas 3 to 4. Sunday looks absolutely marvelous. Relatively light winds, and the forecast and the sea conditions 2 to 3s. That is coming up on Sunday. Now, consecutive days of easterly winds this week, very unique considering all the complaining that I do and others about the prevailing southerlies we usually see. So we had steady easterlies this week, and we'll see if that push from the east brings a few more summer visitors in close along our beaches, maybe inside the inlets. We talked about that mahi on the beach, but I would think with these easterlies and maybe any fingers of warm water that come in with it, you might be able to get out there to those inshore pots, mud hole, the lumps, start looking for flotsam and jetsam to get some of those mahi. And of course, when we get some of that easterly wind, it pushes the ocean water into the bays and rivers during the times of the incoming tide. That certainly helps with that fluke bite inside. Last week at some point, I think I had 82 degrees in a back bay water temperature. Incoming is going to cool it down, but you might get a few more sheepshead in the mix as well, like this one this past Saturday. Now, this was Saturday. Saturday, it just so happened that I picked up a couple of dozen greenies from Frank at Gabriel Tackle and Brick. I was hoping to get a slack tide to be able to get a couple of tog. The honking north wind and the tide didn't make things great. I had some catch and release tog, but I didn't get one of these because just about a mile north of me in the canal, that's where Brody Lowenstein wrangled up this northern Ocean County sheepshead from shore. So it is nice to see that the sheepshead are around as you get farther north. I've not heard any reports out here on the Raritan, but I wouldn't be surprised if folks start looking for tog and start getting some sheepshead in the Manasquan, the Shark River, the upper stretches of Barnegat Bay. We're getting some reports from the South Jetty at Barnegat Inlet as well. And I would remind you that the longtime state record sheepshead was actually caught at the Causeway Bridge in Manahawkin many, many years ago. Now, somewhere in Monmouth County this weekend, the Fernandez family was also doing some shore-bound black fishing. Lots of throwbacks, but also included the 16.5-incher on a 3/4-ounce jig with green crabs. Javier Fernandez also told me that they had another 19.5-incher on the old traditional snafu rig there in Monmouth County. My thanks to Javier for sharing that. You can turn to page 14 of the August edition of the Fisherman magazine for more tips and tactics on tog action, especially back bay, bridges, sod banks from shore along those jetties as well. That's our tog tip tutor himself, Frank Mahalik, and that is the August edition of the Fisherman, which came out last week. You look for that mahi on the cover. Mahi madness and mayhem. That's the article from Captain John Raguso and that fishery that I talked about, easterly winds, on page 26G.
The August glossy edition of the Fisherman magazine is out now. Dave Anderson has tips to increase your hardtail success. David Germain has a great read on a Wicked Tuna alumni on how to become an effective tuna hunter. Captain John Raguso shares his insights on targeting the northeastern Dorado. Going deep for speed? This article is written by Ricky Frank and Nick DeGennaro on how to trick the fastest of the fast pelagics. Finally, Eric Abramson has this month's tail end. Home is where the fishing is. To get all this and more, be a subscriber to the Fisherman magazine. When you subscribe, you get 12 glossy print editions, 26 digital editions to your inbox, this past weekend's reports, plus full access to the website and more. As a subscriber, you can also be part of the Dreamboat Challenge and win a Steiger Craft powered by Yamaha and compete for a rigged out kayak from Yak Attack. Subscribe now.
It's the best time to buy a boat. The Jersey Shore Boat Sale and Expo. Save big, fish big. Inland, offshore, center consoles, and more. September 26th through 28th. Shoretown Ballpark. JerseyBoatExpo.com.
Life is better with a boat.
So as of Thursday, August 7th, you only have 49 days left of New Jersey's summer flounder season. Erwin and I were kidding today. I was like, the older you get, the faster time goes. And this summer is getting by at a quick pace. We are, of course, sliding across the halfway point of summer 2025. And the weather we've had this past week is a little bit of a reminder of what's to come into the months of September, October, and November, and then it's Katie bar the door with striped bass. Now, the one thing, there was a period of time, we had reports a couple of weeks ago in the Fisherman magazine that the Raritan Bay was loaded with bunker, and then these bunker disappeared. Erwin was talking about the same thing, loaded with peanuts right from here at Twin Lights Marina all the way out to the Coast Guard station. So they're in, they're out, the porpoises are in, but the bite, the fluke bite here in particular, has not been so good inside Raritan Bay. It is out front. It's out front on the sticky stuff. And that's what we're finding the more we talk to people all the way down the Jersey coast when we're talking about the fluke fishery this year. But again, it'd be nice if we had all this bunker loaded up here in the Raritan Bay come fall. So on the outgoing tide, you know what that means, an incredible striper fishery right out here along the Monmouth County coast. Now, Wednesday, August 6th, of course, that's today when I'm recording this. I'm going to try to get back in time to my desk today to get all the details on what's happening at the Atlantic States Marine Fisheries Commission, because they're meeting to discuss, I'm tongue-tied because I'm frustrated by this, but striped bass, we're looking at seasonal closures in 2026. So I hope to get a quick update in just a few minutes for you watching. Now, we tend to think of striped bass as having departed this area throughout the New Jersey area, Delaware, because the water gets so warm. Well, I'd remind you that in Delaware, you have that summer slot fishery, a slot option for striped bass in the Delaware Bay, river, and tributaries. That runs from July 1st to August 31st. Anglers being allowed one striped bass from 20 to 24 inches during this summer slot season, because we're left with a lot of the resident fish. Now, we do have the bonus program, the striped bass bonus program in New Jersey. That's underway. If you have the striped bass bonus program tag and you're keeping all the logs that you're supposed to, you get that special striper limit of 24 to less than 28 inches, right? Otherwise, it's 28 to 31 inches. Now, it's been primarily the folks fishing at night in the back bays and rivers who are enjoying a bit of catch and release striper action behind the barrier islands right now. Tom Grabmigna fishes out of Harbor Cove in Summers Point. He had his college roommate down last week, Brett Scola, summertime 36-incher here in Ocean City, late July, just about a week ago. So that is above the slot and swimming around in those back bays. Tom was quick to point out, quote, "My buddy in the back caught nothing. Must have been me." Wasn't, but it should have been. Bridges, jetties, bulkheads, they're the places that are going to hold a few fish. Could be striped bass in the summer, could also be sheepshead and tautog, as I mentioned before. And of course, some triggerfish. It was the North Jetty area at Barnegat where Mikey and Amelia Johnson used a piece of cooked shrimp to snare this 16.5-inch triggerfish. My thanks to Dad Doug for sending this shot of the kids. I got to tell you, if this photo was done in paint, I would have thought it to be a Norman Rockwell. It is a good time of year for the next several weeks to enjoy fishing with the kids during the middle of the week when you can get out. Weekends can be crazy on the water, but if you have some time during the week before the kids go back to school, get yourself a chum log, some small hooks, high-low rigs with pieces of clam, pieces of bloodworm, pieces of fish bites, bag of worms. Get that slick going because it's all about the variety. If you want, when I say variety, you've got the blowfish, you've got small sea bass, you've got puppy drum, all kinds of things. You put the spot, the kids catch the spot, you put them in the live well, striper candy, tuna candy. If you want some tips, go to the Fisherman, thefisherman.com. In the search bar, you type "Get Slick." Now, a few years ago, my buddy Bob Misak had done a little article, and it was "Get Slick and Bring Your Chum." You can get more details on that unique fishery, anchoring up in the back, especially once you get down into Barnegat Bay, prime area for catching blowfish that way. And again, like I said, any spots you get, make sure the live well's going, you turn them around, throw some small spot out at the flotsam jetsam or at any of those lobster pots. Who knows, you get yourself a jumbo mahi as well. Variety being the spice of life. Variety is what we get in the month of August here at the Jersey Shore. Down on Delaware Bay, and the Delaware folks as well, variety is what it's all about. Higbee's reporting on the coals. Jay and Laura Cole, flounder to 19 inches, weak fish to 17 inches, and a couple of tasty kingfish in the mix as well. Laura also had a 32-inch cobia that had to be released. Remember, if you catch a cobia, it's got to be, 43 inches or better for you to keep it, and you get 2 per vessel. But they're on the cruise out there as well after this easterly lays down by Sunday. Start looking for some of those torpedoes swimming through the water. As we continue to travel from south to north, CJ Quayle caught this week. He checked in with a 19-inch flatty floating jig head. Love those floating jig heads from Tin Man Lures. That was out of North Wildwood. 12 shorts to this one keeper. 'Tis the season for that, especially if you're in the back bays. You're going to get a lot more throwbacks than you do keepers. Fishing with Irwin Wednesday, honking wind. We had wind against the tide, heavy bucktails. We had quite a few shorts, but we did have a few fish. 20, 21 inches was about our biggest. But hopefully you're going to get on some of that structure in the weekend ahead and also enjoy that single black sea bass as well. If you have some big fluke pictures to share, the final part of the 2025 Super Fluker Challenge is here, and Jenny is looking for your doormat photos sent to jackerman@thefisherman.com. Jackerman@thefisherman.com.
Hey guys, on this week's Open Boat, we're out here fluking, but I'm gonna give you the final phase of the Super Flukers Challenge, phase 4. It's the dog days of summer, but that doesn't mean fluke fishing is over yet. Sometimes early September, a second wave of big fluke come in, and tying in those big fluke for your submission for phase 4, I want to see your biggest fluke of this season, the 2025 season. I don't want to see old pictures from 2006, I can tell. But this season, let me see your biggest fish. And don't be shy or ashamed if you just got an 18-incher. I don't care. Any fish is a good fish as long as you've caught it yourself. So send me your biggest fish. Maybe we'll see some double digits on there. And stay tuned, because all of the fluke that I've gathered from the Super Fluker Challenge, we're going to showcase at the end of the season in September. So good luck, catch them up, and I'll catch you guys on next week's Open Boat.
For more than 20 years, anglers everywhere have come to know one thing, that nothing says no to fish bites.
From our calendar of events in the August edition, the print edition, that's on page 8. From the right-hand column, when you look down, the ASMFC meeting this week, like I said, heavy emphasis on striped bass. Hang on a couple of minutes, I'll have some more details. You also have the 26th annual ASAC Youth Tournament in Harvey Cedars this Saturday. Kids ages 5 to 17. Look for copies of the Fisherman magazine there. The Association of Surf Angling Clubs. I think that might be all locked up already, but it's always a great event. Also on Saturday, a big event here at the Jersey Shore every year. The Friendly Sons of the Shillelagh out of Belmar have their 18th annual fluke tournament, which has really grown into one of the biggies here every summer. If you go down into South Jersey, we're in that offshore season right now. The White Marlin Open is going on out of Ocean City, Maryland, but you also have the Ocean City Marlin and Tuna Clubs tournament. They renamed their offshore open to the Gold Star Offshore Open this season in honor of warrior Michael Strange. Now, this 48th annual event runs all week to benefit the Michael Strange Foundation for Gold Star Families. That's a Marlin tournament. It's coming up, kicks off this weekend. And you could get all the details at ocmtc.com or goldstaropen.org. I would imagine some of these boats will also be entered into the 56th annual White Marlin Invitational as well. That's different from the White Marlin Open. The White Marlin the Invitational is held out of Beach Haven Marlin and Tuna Club, Beach Haven, New Jersey. That event runs from August 11th. That's coming up hard this weekend. Runs through the 16th. You can get all the details at whitemarlininvitational.com. And of course, you know we have our tournaments here at the Fisherman magazine, open only to subscribers. For a look at the leaderboards in the Dreamboat Fishing Challenge and the Coastal Kayak Clash, we'll go back to the virtual studio someplace in the Ethernet clouds with Tim and Dave.
It's August 7th, and here are the entries for the Fisherman Dreamboat Fishing Challenge. We have 3 fluke hitting the board this week, so here we go. First fluke is from New England subscriber Richard Pomgrant of Attleboro, Massachusetts, with an 11.20 pound fluke weighed in at Red Top Sporting Goods, which puts Richard in 3rd place in the fluke category. Next up is Bruce Bear, a Long Island subscriber from Freeport, New York, weighing in his fluke at Capital Bait and Tackle at 11.88 pounds, putting Bruce in 2nd. Our 3rd fluke entry comes from Fernando Lage, New England subscriber from Seymour, Connecticut, weighed in at D's Bait and Tackle with a 7.07 pounder, which puts Fernando in 10th spot for the fluke category. The leaderboard stands at Rashawn Williams in 1st place with 17 points, Thomas Luciano 2nd with 16 points, Jeffrey Harrison taking 3rd with 15 points. Are you the best angler in the Northeast? Well, now is your chance to prove it. The Fisherman's Dreamboat Contest is back. Win this Steigercraft center console powered by Yamaha along with these other great prizes. Fish hard and weigh in as many of these species to be top on the leaderboard. What's the catch? You must be a subscriber to the Fisherman magazine. All it takes is 1 fish on the board to win a great prize, so however you fish, you have a shot. For all the details and official rules, visit thefisherman.com. There were no new entries in the Coastal Kayak Clash. Dustin Stevens is in 1st with 9 points, Rotha Nong has 6 points, and Tom Howard has 5 points. Hey kayakers, the Fisherman's Coastal Kayak Clash contest is back. Win this fully outfitted Hobie Mirage Lynx kayak from Yak Attack along with other great prizes. Catch and release as many of these species to be top on the leaderboard. To enter, you must be a subscriber to the Fisherman magazine, fish from a kayak, and document your catch. Many chances to win great prizes, so get out there on the water now and fish hard. To be part of the action, you must be a subscriber and register at thefisherman.com.
Sharks, fluke, whales, cobia, striped bass, tuna, mahi, sheepshead, tautog. I think we've covered just about everything. And we'll jump into the latest management news. I'm going to wash myself up, freshen up a little bit, head back to my desk, and see if I can sit in on the rest of the ASMFC Striper hearing to give you all the details. And I'll let George freshen you up with our Sweetwater update from the Poconos.
Well, hey, Jim, thanks. You know, summertime fishing can be really tough. You know, you got the heat, you got boat traffic, you got fishing pressure, you got all kinds of pressure on these fish, and sometimes it can be difficult to get a bite. For summertime fishing, I like to use 2 different tactics, a reaction bite tactic and a finesse tactic. Now, the reaction bite, we look at fast things like buzz baits, spinner baits, jerk baits, chatter baits, things that are noisy fast that a fish is just going to whack before it even has a chance to think about it. Just like Chris Hutchinson here in Atlantic County, he managed to get a really nice bass in that golden hour in the morning with a spinner bait. So again, a real fast presentation you can hit those fish with, and they're not even going to think about it. They're just going to whack it and move on. Nice fish there, Chris, by the way. Good luck with that. We also have the finesse bite. That's a little bit different. We're looking at things like a Nico rig, a Carolina rig, a Ned rig, something that's really slow, that deliberate. You're going to put right in front of that fish's face and it's going to dance around, and they just can't stand it. It's like putting a cheeseburger in front of you in the middle of summer. You're just going to end up eating it. Things like that. We had podcaster Joe Santiago and our friend Chuck Manny out on the Delaware, and they were throwing Ned rigs and got a whole variety of fish, everything from a smallmouth to walleye to catfish, believe it or not, all on a Ned rig, so it's a multi-use bait, guys, if you use that real low and slow presentation. Now we had Tom Lawrence check in. He said there's a couple of recent graduates that got into their very first smallmouth. They were fishing Delaware River as well, and they used a wacky rig Senko to get onto their fish. So very first smallmouth for these youngsters, and I bet we'll end up seeing more for them. And Tom also said he was out fishing an SP minnow on the Delaware around the eastern area and got into this great little striper in the late evening hours. So great work there, Tom, and thanks for the follow-up on that. Guys, lots of options this time of year, no matter what you're fishing, the bass, the largemouth, smallmouth, walleye, stripers. Use any of these tactics and you'll be sure to get on some fish. Until next week, I'm George, your Pocono Outdoors Guy.
Like I said, rushing to get back to my desk today. Not a bad haul, huh? Not a bad haul indeed. Thank you, Captain Irwin. Next week, we'll find out more about fluke, perhaps sea bass. That is the Mid-Atlantic Fishery Management Council. They're going to meet from August 11th to the 14th in Annapolis, Maryland. Details on this meeting along with the final agenda, you can find that at mafmc.org. You'll also find all the webinar login details. Now on the docket for next week's council meeting, 2026 specifications for bluefish, fluke, porgies, and black sea bass. More debate on recreational sector separation as well. There'll be a lot to cover from this meeting next week in the coming weeks and months as we set a course for rules and regulations for 2026. Again, I'm going to refer you back to that August edition of the Fisherman magazine. My editor's log on page 3, false promises. My personal take on black sea bass. A few friends and I, of mine and I, we've been talking about the incredible biomass of black sea bass, which has been off limits for so long. And I'm anxious to see what happens at the council next week if they finally, if you take a look at that chart that's in there and on the screen, if they finally start to say, yeah, well, you can start getting into that. That is next week. This week, the reason I rushed back from the boat, the Atlantic States Marine Fisheries Commission and the status of striped bass, and away we go. Now, first off, the percentage reductions discussed. The ASMFC Striped Bass Management Board voted in favor of a 12% reduction in overall striped bass mortality rather than what had been on the table as well, up to 18%. Now, keep this in mind. What this is all about is the spawning stock biomass, this big number, has to be rebuilt by a finite target date of 2029. And right now we're less than 50% probability of reaching that target deadline, the target biomass. We're actually below that. So we've got to cut back now 12% in order to reach that deadline. So first off, we'll go back to what we've discussed before. A lot of times over the last couple of years, and half of the overall mortality, if you look at the entire mortality in recreational striper, dead striped bass, half of that overall mortality in the recreational striped bass fishery, according to the ASMFC, comes from catch and release. The other half is from harvest. So since that release mortality rate, the mortality rate on striped bass is 9%, that means that roughly every 11th striped bass that you catch and release is considered a dead striper. Thus, there were no targeting and no harvest restrictions being reviewed by the ASMFC. Now, I would tell you that Martin Gary, who's head of the New York DEC, he led a motion to remove the no targeting options from the list. Said when he spoke to New York conservation officers, they said they can't do it. It's impossible. We can't figure out if they're targeting. Except Mr. Gary said it's okay on the Chesapeake. Down on the Chesapeake, you can do it. But up here, I guess we're a bunch of scofflaws. We can't do it. The problem is there's a no targeting rule in the EEZ. So that's been on for years. I mean, and allegedly, one of the public comments from New York, one of the commenters said, that every November off of Fire Island, New York, it's normal to see 5 or 6 party boats and 50 to 100 private boats illegally targeting striped bass, which is interesting and problematic. They can't enforce it or they don't enforce it, I'm not sure. ASMFC has had this no targeting rule in federal waters in the EEZ, the exclusive economic zone, for a long time in hopes of recovering the stock. So if no targeting is impossible to enforce, why the heck is the EEZ still closed to targeted catch and release striper fishing? I mean, I really don't understand that. Personally, my own behavior is that my personal behavior is impacted knowing what's legal and not legal, right? If you tell me something's against the law, I'm not going to do it. It's not the case with everybody, but the majority of anglers, I do believe that if you said you can't target them, they would listen. But because of these scofflaws, so this is the debate between no targeting and no harvest. Now, I'm not saying that I support a no target closure. It's a shorter closure than the longer no harvest. I'm just saying that it should be an option for the public to weigh in on in the fall, don't you think? The circle hook mandate is pretty much unenforceable as well in the EEZ. I don't know, is that enforceable? And we have a back bay closure in New Jersey. You're not allowed to target stripers in the back bays in January and February. Is that not enforceable either? Again, it should be an option for y'all to consider. No? Well, no, not really. But the motion was amended. So Mr. Gary said remove the no targeting closure, and they adopted a little bit of an amendment there. There's not going to be a no targeting closure option for the ocean, but the assumption is that striped bass only trips are eliminated during the no harvest closure, right? So there's not going to be a no targeting option, just a no closure option. But even with a no harvest option, the theory is there's not going to be any targeted striped bass trips, which means that during a no harvest period, you're really not allowed to go fishing for striped bass, exclusively for striped bass at all, even if it's just catch and release. Now, this is going to be one of the interesting tidbits to digest this fall during the public comment. Bottom line, and to simplify things, if no target options are effectively removed, look at this screen on this chart on the screen. The only viable option that I think we're really looking at this fall for public comment puts New Jersey and Delaware in a region from Rhode Island to North Carolina with a 36-day closure, no harvest of striped bass in wave 6, which effectively is the November-December timeframe. The items that are in red on the screen, the color red, indicates that closing an entire 2-month wave, March, April, May, June, July, August, or September, October, would not even give us the 12% reduction. It's not enough. Now, if you look at Maine to Massachusetts, that's another region. They're looking at a potential 41-day closure in wave 4. That's July and August. As to whether or not any of these portions from wave 2, March and April, can be coupled with wave 6, November and December, to offset some of the pain, I'm not sure. That's something we're going to have to find out about. But from the looks of things, one potential option is, it's quite possible that we'll be seeing a striped bass season in 2026 that ends on November 26th. I will have some more time to discuss this with some management folks, some friends of mine, and try to break this down in the coming days. And I'm sure they'll help correct any of the mistakes that I've made by sitting in on this meeting after a long day of fluking. But I'm trying to get this out as quickly as possible so folks understand what we're going to be looking at. Because the headlines, the blogs over the next couple of weeks are going to be on fire with this striped bass discussion. But here's the timeline. It's on the screen. We'll need time to review this. The draft addendum was approved by the ASMFC this week. The public comment period gets underway in September, and over the next several weeks, all of us at the Fisherman magazine, in the video, online, and in the print edition, will be trying to sort this all out for folks so you're fully aware of what's coming in September. Those are the public comment, the public hearings where you get to digest this and weigh in on it. They're going to consider final approval in October, and then perhaps we see this rolled out in 2026. That is striped bass. Next week, we'll talk a little bit more about black sea bass and fluke and whatever comes out of the council meeting. But we're in a management cycle. It's fish sausage stuffing season. And I'm thinking about stuffing these fluke with some crab meat. Catch them up. We'll talk again next week right here at thefisherman.com.